export manager the first 15 years. So that's why I know your stores, because I've been visiting them during 15 years in the past. So that being said, again, a few words. You see you have the buffet, and then we have brought a bottle on your table, and then we'll bring other bottles. So just a few words about what you are drinking. When we started, at the start, the welcome drink, as we can call it, was the cuvée we call L'Intemporel. So you know L'Intemporel is one of our cuvées, so it's a very strange French name that means timeless. It's a champagne you can drink anytime, you know, from breakfast to breakfast, anytime. And this cuvée, L'Intemporel, if you remember, is a clear glass bottle and is always sold in a white box. And this cuvée is always a vintage, millésime. So it's not a blend of different years, it's a single vintage. And the vintage you've had and the one you have in your stores now is 18. And honestly, 18 is probably the best vintage in the last 15 years. It's very easy to remember in Champagne, since the beginning of this century, years finishing by 2 and 8 are the best. 02, 08, 12, 18, and the next one will be 22, but it's still in the cellar. So L'Intemporel 18 is a blend of 60 Pinot Noir, 40 Chardonnay. Because the place you are here, if you look around, we have vines everywhere. Again, the vineyard is just around us. We are planted mainly with Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir is the main grape here. Pinot Noir is the king of the Montagne de Reims. We also have a bit of Chardonnay, 25%, and we have no other grapes. Meunier is not planted here. Meunier it's possible to plant Meunier on the Grand Cru village. Some people think it's forbidden, it's not true. You can plant Meunier on the Grand Cru village, but nobody has done it. Either you're in Montagne de Reims, where we are, and Pinot Noir is the main one, or you're in the south of Épernay, Côte des Blancs, villages like Avize, Le Mesnil, Chouilly, and then Chardonnay is the main one. So in our place, Pinot Noir is the main one, but we are planted 75 Pinot, 25 Chardonnay. So in most of our blend, in most of our champagne, we will blend these two grapes, except Blanc de Noir, which is purely Pinot Noir, and Blanc de Blanc, which is purely Chardonnay. But in most of our champagne, we will blend Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. In the first one you had, L'Intemporel, 60 Pinot, 40 Chardonnay. It's the highest level of Chardonnay in our estate. Always a majority of Pinot Noir. And L'Intemporel, our ambition is to have a champagne with the highest possible finesse. You know, very delicate bottle, very clean, lively, pure. It's a limited edition. We never do more than 15, 18,000 bottles a year. So very limited edition. And we don't do it every year. We only do it when it's possible. You know, in Champagne, we don't produce vintage champagne every year. We only do them when it's possible. So L'Intemporel is not produced on a yearly basis. It's produced when it's possible. And when it's possible, never more than 15, 18,000 bottles. So small plots that we taste and we think it's the level to be in L'Intemporel cuvée. So that's the first one. The second one you have now on the table is the classic, the one we call Brut Réserve. So it's our best-selling champagne. It's the best-selling champagne in your stores as well. And in one way, it's understandable because it's the entry level. But entry level with Grand Cru. So there are very few entry level champagne with Grand Cru grapes. And this is only Grand Cru here. And this one, in some ways, is like a patchwork of all the places we have here. Because if you look here, you look north. So this is Belgium in that direction. 100 kilometers far from here, you have this is north. And the Montagne de Reims, in our village, you have north-facing slopes, south-facing, east, west. You have the 4 points of the compass. And the soil here is very specific. In Grand Cru villages in Champagne, you have a soil made with chalk, pure chalk, white chalk. And it's 200 meters deep. So the vein of chalk is very, very deep, and the chalk is like a sponge. In 1 cubic meter of chalk, you have 300-400 liters of water. So it's 30-40% water, 200 meters deep, which means that when it's raining too much, the humidity is going down 200 meters, and when it's too dry, and in recent years it was the main problem. Then the humidity is coming up. So in some ways, it's always feeding the vines perfectly. And in all Grand Cru villages in Champagne, you have that in common, this vein of chalk, 200 meters deep. And Mailly is made with this vein of chalk, but sometimes on top of it, you have some clay, limestone, sand. So in some places, in some plots, it's pure chalk. In other places, at the top of the village, you may have 2, 3, 4 meters of clay, limestone, stone on top of the chalk. So we will vinify all these places separately. We will vinify these plots separately because for the diversity. Because if there is something to remember in Champagne, blending is the key. The blend is the key. In Champagne, we like to say 1 + 1 is 3. Because if you blend two nice things together, then you have something even higher. That's why we blend grapes, we blend plots, and we blend years. We blend different years, except if it's a single vintage. So the first one was a single vintage. This one, the main one, is the blend of 10 years. In Brut Reserve Mailly, you always have a blend of 10 different vintages. Because with 10 vintages, it allows you to have complexity, because it's a large choice, it's a large range, and most important, you have the possibility to keep the consistency. Because what is very important for us is that if some people like this champagne, if they buy Mailly Black Label Brut Reserve, if they like it, and then the year after they find it again in your store, they want to find the same taste. Maybe it's coming from other years, maybe it's coming from other blends, but very important is the consistency. That's the key for this type of champagne. A single vintage will reflect the year, the vintage, but a blend, classic, must be consistent. It doesn't mean it can't change, but not from 1 year to another. Maybe on a 10 years period, you can make a change, but not from 1 year to another. So that's why in this champagne, you will not see any year on the label, any vintage. But if you want to go into detail, this is a base year, so the main vintage is 21, and it's 1/3 reserve wines. And in the reserve wines, 10 years, 20, 19, 18, back to 2010. And again, this is for complexity, and this is for consistency. So in some ways, this champagne is the house style. It's the signature. It's the one that must never change. It's the taste of Mailly is this one, Brut Reserve. And honestly, for this one, we want to please everybody. We want to please champagne lovers because we are a Grand Cru village. We produce wine with purity, very clean, very distinctive, very elegant. But to be honest with you, we also want to please those that buy champagne once a year. Because it's Christmas, because they're happy, because they get married, they divorced, I don't know, wedding, victory, so for celebration. So in our range, this champagne must answer all these questions. You must interest connoisseurs, but we want also to interest people that discover champagne. So in our range, that's the one. So 75 Pinot Noir, 25 Chardonnay, 10 years blended, and a patchwork of all the soils we have here at Mailly. So this is really the essence of Mailly. You've just had another one on the table, the second one you have, and this one, we name it Blanc de Pinot Noir. So the category is Blanc de Noir. You know, in Champagne, if you don't have anything, meaning you blend red and black and white grapes, if you write Blanc de Blanc, must be Chardonnay, it's a white juice from the white grape. If you write Blanc de Noir, must be either Pinot Noir or Meunier or both. And because here at Mailly we don't grow Meunier, the Blanc de Noir we call it Blanc de Pinot Noir, the white juice from the Pinot Noir grape. Because you know the color is only into the skin, the juice is white. So if you press it directly, you will extract the white juice from the Pinot Noir grape. So that's what we do here for this one. And as I said at the start, Pinot Noir is the main one. Pinot Noir is really the king of this area. So this one is to reflect what is Pinot Noir in Champagne. And very interestingly, with Pinot Noir, you have something with more roundness, something with more body, a champagne with more structure, a velvety texture. So if I sum up, The first one is the champagne, which is very delicate, special occasion, if I can say so. The second one is the champagne for any time, any people, always in the fridge, always a pleasure. This one, the last one you've had, Blanc de Pinot Noir, is a champagne that we would recommend if you have something to eat with, if you have appetizers. If you're at home, you have some friends that come home, and then you have a champagne, but not only champagne, you have something to eat with. It can be shrimps, it can be some chips, it can be some charcuterie or whatever. This one is a nice match for that, because the Pinot Noir is bringing more roundness, more creaminess, a bit more fruit-forward style. So we are very proud of our Blanc de Noir. It's our second best-selling champagne here at Mailly, and we were the very first in Champagne to produce Blanc de Noir 40 years ago. Because now Blanc de Noir is more and more popular. Everybody is producing Blanc de Noir, but believe me, 40 years ago, it was something a bit unusual. But because we are in a Pinot Noir land, and something important to know, I told you this is north. And if you look at the Champagne area, the Montagne de Reims, where we are, is doing like a croissant, like this. You have the forest at the top, and you have vines which are on the other side of the mountains, villages named Bouzy, Ailly, Ambonnay. So that's the Grand Cru from the south, and here we are the Grand Cru from the north, Verzenay, Mailly, Verzy. And it makes a difference, because the Pinot Noir from the southern side of Montagne de Reims are those that are giving you body, red fruit flavor, very powerful, very rich. Here on this side of the mountains, the Pinot Noir are much more fresh. So it's not better, it's not better or worse, it's different. The Pinot Noir here are always fresh because of the north-facing slopes. And we are the last village to harvest in Champagne. So when our friend starts, let's say 10th of September, we know we start the 20th of September because it needs more time for maturation. And to be honest with you, in the 60s, 70s, it was a problem. Because of the frost, because of the small yield, it was much more difficult. But in recent times, for 20, 25 years, whether we like it or not, it's warmer. And when it's warmer, it means you have more maturity. So being in a place where you can keep some freshness, it's very important. So in this champagne, it's a style of Pinot Noir. Okay, Pinot Noir body, fruit forward, richness, but still fresh. It can be drunk as an aperitif because of thanks to the freshness. I've seen that you've had another bottle on the table. This one you can't miss it, the color is different. Pink, rosé, champagne rosé. We name it Rosé de Mailly. So I don't know if you're aware of that, but in Champagne you have two possibilities to produce rosé. You can produce rosé by blending red and white wine together. It's the only region in France, maybe in Europe, where you are allowed to do that. If you do that in Provence, if you do that in Rhône, in Burgundy, it's a crime. If you do that in Champagne, it's fantastic. Why? Because Champagne is a world of blending. We blend grapes, we blend years, we blend colors. Why? Because the wine is re-fermenting. We have a second fermentation. So if you only say, okay, let's put red and white together, and then you stop, it's not good. But if you say, okay, let's blend red and white together, and then we have a second fermentation, it's becoming another wine, then it's interesting. So a huge majority of Champagne Rosé, around 90%, are made by blending red and white together. That's not what we do here. Here we do the old way. We do like in other wine regions do. We only use Pinot Noir grape, red grapes or black grapes, and then we do a skin maceration. Knowing that the color is only into the skin, we put the full berries in vats and we wait a few hours, 6, 8, 10, 12 hours, depending on the vintage, until the color is pink. So the winemaker has to sleep at the foot of the tank because he has to check the color every hour, because if it's too dark, you can't go backwards. So when you think the color is fine, you separate the juice from the skin. So again, it's not better, it's different. It's Pinot Noir Rosé, so it gives maybe more red fruit flavor. So the idea here is to select south-facing slopes on the contrary of the previous one, which were mainly north-facing slopes. But here we want south-facing slopes to get more red fruit flavor, to get more, you can't miss it. Blind tasting, okay, strawberry, raspberry, red berries, it's Pinot Noir. So that's our ambition for the rosé. And there is a very specific reason why there are very few rosé de macération or rosé de saignée in Champagne. It's because the Champagne business is mostly in the hand of negociants. 80% of the business. If you're a negociant, you can't do skin maceration rosé. You buy wine, you blend the wine. You need to own a vineyard to do a skin maceration rosé. So unless you own the grapes, you can't make any skin maceration rosé. So again, it's not better, it's different. But you can do that only if you have the grapes in your hand, only if you can handle the grapes. So it's a small part of the range, but there will be other ones to come later on. So I will stop talking. I will leave you on your plates. You will have another. You can still have some food to grab, and there will be a dessert to come. And if you have any question, I would be very glad, or Valérie, to answer you. Thank you very much. And yes.
Whenever they were setting up the Grand Cru villages, what was the determining factor? Was it grape quality? Was it soil type, microclimate? What were they looking at to say this is better than that?
It's a very good question.
I do those.
And it's very difficult to answer. Because there are, well, first of all, like most vineyards in Europe, the Romans put vines here 1,500 years ago. And then until the 17th, 18th century, it was in the hand of the church, the abbé, the monks. The monks were in charge of making wines here. And in Burgundy and in Champagne and in other places, the monks knew by experience, by tasting the soil, that some places were more interesting than others. But at that time, we were not talking about Grand Cru, about Premier Cru, but they knew that in Montagne de Reims, in Côte des Blancs, that there was something interesting. The wines were more interesting here. That's what they knew. Then, in the 18th century, the family came. Private business model. Family came. They private companies. They came, and then they worked on that, and they realized that the villages where the monks realized grapes were very interesting, the chalk was there. Because if you put a stick, you see the chalk, the pure chalk. So all the Grand Cru villages have something in common, and Premier Cru around, they have this vein of chalk. That's what they have in common. But if I want to be perfectly honest with you, we're in France. And in France, there is always a bit of politics involved. And the Grand Cru villages are those where you find this vein of chalk. But the Grand Cru villages are also those where the big houses in the 19th century had their press center. So, all that to say that it's not 100% sure that all villages with this nice piece of chalk are Grand Cru, because if there was no press center here, maybe it's not a Grand Cru. But it's 100% sure that all the Grand Cru villages, which are all located in the heart of Champagne, half of them here and half of them in Côte des Blancs, have that in common, this vein of chalk. So that's what makes them very special. But unlike Burgundy, where they went into details, one village can be Burgundy, village, Premier Cru, Grand Cru, so it's split into different plots. In Champagne, they didn't go that far. In Champagne, one village is Grand Cru, the whole village, or the village next to us is Premier Cru, the whole village, and a bit further it's Champagne. So we didn't go that far into details, but same story than in Burgundy. That's where the monks, and then when we analyzed the soil, we realized that there were this piece of chalk.
Has there been any additions since the original 36 setup of Grand Cru villages?
So 1936 is the appellation, AOC. But the Grand Cru system exists since 1911, meaning that there were Grand Cru villages before the appellation system. So the Grand Cru were called 100%. They are called 100% village. Premier Cru village were rated between 90 and 99%. And other villages at that time were rated between 50 and 89%. And it was a question of price. If you wanted to buy a grape from a Grand Cru village, you had to pay 100% of the price. If you were buying grapes from a 92% village, then you had to pay 92% of the price. So it's how it started. And little by little, this percentage were lost, but the Grand Cru remains. Because we pay more here, but you know it's totally forbidden to agree on price. You know, there is deregulation. You can't have agreement on price. But the true fact is, everybody knows how much we have to pay for Grand Cru, how much we have to pay for Premier Cru. There are prices differences, but at the very beginning, it was linked to the percentage.
Can you talk about a different area? It's Côte d'Ivoire.
Yes. So in Champagne, you have Champagne, 100 miles, Sarcon, 319 villages, 34,000 hectares. Inside this big appellation, you have some districts. Here we are in Montagne de Reims. Épernay is the real center. South of Épernay, you have Côte des Blancs. I think you were in Avize, or you're going to Avize. Avize is in Côte des Blancs. So that's the two places where you find Grand Cru and Premier Cru villages. But if you drive more towards Paris, if you follow the Marne River, you have a third region named Vallée de la Marne. So it's 50 kilometers far from Épernay until Château-Thierry, which is close to Paris. You have Vallée de la Marne vineyards. If you drive 100 kilometers south, you will have the Aube region, also named as Côte des Bars. So there are also other places, Cézanne, small places, but the four main regions in Champagne are Montagne de Reims, Vallée de la Marne, Côte des Blancs, and Aube region. So all this area are Champagne. But the Grand Cru, the Premier Cru, Vallée de la Marne, and Côte des Blancs.
Why not the other places?
Why not?
Yes, why not?
In?
Why not in the other places? There's not. Is it they are not connected politically?
Historically, as I said, the Grand Cru system, Grand Cru ladder, we call it, l'échelle des crus, Grand Cru ladder, existed prior to the AOC. At the very, very beginning, there were only 7 villages. Mailly was one of the 7. And then, in 1920s, they extended the Grand Cru region with Côte des Blancs. And they stopped here. If, honestly, if you want to be totally honest, of course there are some villages in Aube and in Vallée de la Marne where you can produce fantastic champagne. Of course. But nobody worked on that since 1920. You know? And it's exactly like Grand Cru is not everything. Grand Cru is not everything. But it's exactly like a chef. If you're a chef, you have a restaurant. If you want to have a nice cuisine, you need the best ingredients. And the best ingredients, they are the Grand Cru grapes. They are the most expensive, and they are very important for Grand Cru. They are those with the most aging potential. If you look at the technical file of all prestige cuvées in Champagne, Dom Pérignon, Krug, Cristal, Comte de Champagne, all of them, Grand Cru. Why? Aging potential. If you want to keep them 10 years in the cellar, and then a customer is buying it and he wants to keep it another 10 years in his own cellar, you need to have something that can stand the time. And the Grand Cru grapes are known for that. So what I want to say is that if you want to have a good champagne, you need the best ingredients. But if you're not a good chef, you know, you may have the best ingredients in the world, it doesn't prove it's good. You know what I mean? Grand Cru doesn't prove it's the top quality. But if you want to reach a top quality, you need to work with the best ingredients. And that's the most expensive. There is a reason why.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.